Journal. I've got Asheebo Rojas of the Chatham News and Record, the sports writer extraordinaire. We're back on Chatham NC Sports Roundup this Wednesday. We've got what stories Asheebo's got coming out in the Chatham News and Record newspaper coming out today. Update on the Northwood football coach search, last week's scores and results, power rankings, and athlete of the week. You folks like the power rankings last week on baseball and softball, so Asheebo's back with those. Then we're going to talk about RPIs and conference standing because we're getting close to the end of the regular season and need to start thinking about state playoffs. And then again, baseball, softball, soccer, track, and lacrosse. And then we'll be talking about where Asheebo and I may be over the next 7 days. I'm not quite sure, but I know Asheebo's already got some things picked out. So let's hand this over to Asheebo. Asheebo, go ahead and start us off.
Yeah, so as far as stories coming out in the Chatham News and Record this week, we got plenty of good stuff. Starting off, we got a dual kind of feature with Maddie Kasmarchik and Aiden Allred from Chatham Central Softball and Chatham Charter Baseball. They're having some outstanding seasons and topping the stat categories in their respective positions. Maddie's a pitcher for Chatham Central. Aiden, he's been hitting the ball really well for Chatham Charter. I think he hit his sixth home run of the season last week. It was 5 when I wrote the story, but check that one out and see how they've been doing this year and really standing out for their teams. And then also we had game stories from last week. Jordan Matthews, softball, erasing a 4-run deficit to beat Northmore 7-6 in extra innings last Wednesday. And then we also have our roundup detailing all the scores and results from last week, which we'll get into later on in the stream. And then we also have Seaforth. They hosted the Chatham County Unified Day with many of Chatham County schools, students with disabilities coming together, walking and running in different track events. Now the rain had to force it inside in Seaforth's basketball gym, but they still had a great time. And the Golden Knights parachuted into the middle of the field before they had to move inside. So everyone still got to see a little bit of a show before it started. So you can read about what happened at Seaforth last week as well. And yeah, we can get into scores and results from last week. Now, for baseball, starting there, we had Chatham Central. They came back from down 7-0 to beat Trinity 9-8 in 8 innings on Friday, but they lost to Southern Lee before that on the 8th, 7-2. And then Seaforth, they went 4-0 during last week. They beat Northwood, Graham, and Southeast Alamance twice. And then they beat Southeast Alamance 7-4 on the 9th and 11-9 on Friday. And then Northwood, they lost to Pinecrest 9-0 on April 10th. And in that one, we had a no-hitter from Pinecrest pitcher Mason Conan, who didn't allow a single hit against the Chargers in that one. And then Jordan Matthews, they lost to Bartley Yancey 5-2 on the 9th. Chatham Charter, they beat River Mill 10-0 on April 9th as well. But they also lost to Clever Garden School 8-4 on Friday. And that was their first conference loss of the season. And as far as baseball power rankings last week, we starting to see Seaforth, Chatham Central, Chatham Charter, Northwood, Jordan Matthews. It's kind of been really tight this year on the baseball side. But this week, I got Seaforth at number 1, Chatham Central at number 2, Chatham Charter at number 3, Northwood at 4, and Jordan Matthews at 5. And after this week, after what we've seen already from Monday to last night, that's all going to probably change for next week's power rankings as well. Because like I said, baseball, they just been battling out this year in the county, beating each other, great games, extra innings all season so far. So definitely a lot of movement going to happen in the power rankings there. And then as far as softball, we had Chatham Central continuing their hot season. They beat Seaforth in 9 innings on April 9th, 10-6. They also won over Southeast Alamance 21-8 on the 10th, and they beat Graham 15-0 Friday. And then Jordan Matthews, like we said, they came back down from 6-2 to beat Northmore on the 10th. And then they also ended the week with a 2-0 win over Southeast Alamance Friday. Northwood, they beat Chapel Hill 8-5 on April 10th. And then they beat Seaforth 11-5 on Friday. And Seaforth did get a win last week, beating Green Level 9-8 on the 10th. And Chatham Charter, they won over River Mill 9-2 on April 9th. So, yeah, softball power rankings, Not as tight as baseball this year, but we got two really good teams at the top. Chatham Charter is also having a really good season in 1A as well. So at number one, just off of last week, I got Chatham Central at 1, Jordan Matthews at 2, Chatham Charter at 3, Northwood at 4, and Seaforth at 5. Please let me know what you think of the power rankings for baseball and softball. It's been a great season so far, like I said, and plenty of teams, plenty of great players, plenty of great games have gone on this year. Let me know what you think and who you think should be higher or lower this year. And then for girls soccer, having another great season with a couple of teams here in girls soccer. We had Seaforth beating Bartlett Yancey 13-0 on April 8th. And then the Hawks had a tie with East Chapel Hill 1-1 on the 10th. But then they beat Jordan Matthews 9-0 on Thursday. Woods Charter, they lost to Carborough on 7-0 on April 10th. But then bounced back and beat Clever Garden School 9-0 on Friday. Chatham Charter beat Selden Wake Academy 4-3 on the 8th. And then the Knights also lost to River Mill 10-1 on April 10th. And they lost to Ashboro Hybrid Academy 9-0 on Thursday. And then Jordan Matthews, they beat Graham 1-0 on April 9th. And also in the roundups, you can check the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A, and Central Tar Heel Conference standings for baseball, softball, girls soccer, in the paper as well, and it comes out as of Sunday for the standings as well. And the boys across last week for Seaforth and Northwood. Seaforth, they beat Union Pines on the 10th, 10-6, and Western Alamance on Friday, 7-6. On the 9th, though, they did lose to Orange 22-6. And then Northwood, they went undefeated during the week, beating Southern Alamance 12-4, Southeast Alamance 20-0, and Eastern Alamance 13-0. And then the girls lacrosse, we had Seaforth losing to East Chapel Hill on the April 8th, 19-2. But they beat Riverside Durham 14-7 on the 10th. And then Northwood, they beat Jordan 19-8 on April 8th. And then they beat Carborough as well 20-4 on the 10th. And then tennis, we also had Seaforth continuing their great season in boys tennis. If you guys haven't known, they've been killing it this year, pretty much dominating the conference in boys tennis. So they had beat Chatham Central on the 9th, 5-1. And then they also dominated Southeast Alamance in a doubleheader on the 10th, winning 6-0 on the first game and 9-0 on the second one. And then Jordan Matthews beat Northmore 6-3 on Friday. And Chatham Charter, they beat Chatham Central 5-4 on April 10th. But then they also lost to Research Triangle on Friday, 9-0. And then we had a couple of track meets last week that you can check the results. The Chatham County's first place finishers in all the events we had the Hornet Invitational on Saturday, the Northmore home meet on April 10th, and then the Jordan Matthews home meet on April 10th as well. First place finishers, like I said, from Chatham County, boys and girls events are all listed in this week's paper coming out today.
Yeah, but there's also, before we also talk about the potential for playoffs, because you mentioned the power rankings and you also mentioned the conference standings. We'll get into that. But a couple of things I definitely want to touch on. Northwood, and it got announced at the Chatham County School Board meeting on Monday, Northwood has gotten themselves a new football coach. You want to bring that up?
Yeah, Northwood, they hired Dalton Brown, a Northwood 2011 graduate. He was a multi-sport athlete in his time at Northwood, played football at Campbell, and spent some time at the college level coaching as well. So he's coming to take over the job for Miss Johnson, who left who left in March. So Coach Brown coming in, like we said, Northwood alum. Gene, you've been around longer than me here in the community. I mean, you talked to me about some things that you think he can bring to the team. What do you see him bringing to the program?
Yeah, we talked about this at yesterday's soccer game. I think I took pictures of Dalton when he was playing rec league ball. He and my son played rec league ball, but he played in both the basketball and the basketball and football teams at Northwood. I think the thing a lot of folks know about Dalton is he's always been a tough player. He's always been coachable, and he's always been a team player. So I think he brings a lot of stuff that is important here at Chatham County. Now, it's not going to be easy for him next year because Gus Ritchie has gone and he's over at Cary now. And, the team has gone through 3 coaches in 3 years. This is going to be the newest coach. But I think Dalton's going to be able to make a connection with them. I saw somebody post information about it, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, gosh, I need to go through my pictures and see if I can find any pictures of him back from his playing days. So that's on my list to do for next week. Maybe I can find one next Wednesday's sports update. And I think you and I have also talked. You talked with Coach Vernon, the AD at Northwood, and they're planning to do a meet and greet with him. When is that coming up?
Yes, that'll be tomorrow, Thursday at 6 p.m.
Okay, and that's going to be at Northwood. So your folks want to welcome Dalton back. This is your opportunity. I think he's a good match, and hopefully he'll stay around for a while. So that's the ambition there. I think we'll find out too, because you got spring warmups, and again, this is an aside because this is something Asheebo and I talked about. You're thinking about doing some stories or some research into middle school football, aren't you?
Yeah, youth football, talking to some people, coaches, people in the community, and they've expressed to me over and over again the importance of having youth football and wanting to bring that back to the county and make it a thing where it stays, consistently year after year, and helps cultivate some talent for football and help out the high schools when the kids get to that age. Because I know, not having a solid youth program throughout the entire county, kind of hurt some of these programs a little bit. They might struggle to have the numbers with their freshman classes and trying to get as many boys as they can interested in playing. So definitely want to take a deep dive into that. And I've been hearing from some of the people in Solid City, like Coach Kermit Carter. They're working on getting some youth football back started over there, and instilling football into the youth before they get to middle school, high school, and things like that. So definitely looking forward to tackling that, doing some research on it, and seeing kind of what the county thinks and what other people think in the county about what should be done with the youth football issue here in Chatham County.
Well, I know it's been a big concern because back when Bill Hall was the football coach at Northwood, we ran a cartoon in the Chatham Journal paper, and the cartoon basically was a caricature of Bill Hall holding up a football going, okay, this is a football. So it may not be that extreme, but it is. And I think a lot of people that you're talking to will say we're not where we need to be with high school football because of that lack of youth football. So folks, stay. There's no time parameters on Asheebo. This is a project, and maybe I shouldn't have mentioned anything, but it is something that he's looking into. So that's good to know. The other thing too is I'm going to backtrack to one other thing. I think both you and I have watched, and I think a lot of folks in Chatham County have watched it. Pat Welter, the sports videographer at WRAL, did a half-hour documentary on Drake Powell. They showed a shorter version of it on Fox 50 on Sunday night, and you can see the full version on High School OT. What did you take away from that? What did you think about the overall sense of that documentary, Asheebo?
I mean, yeah, when I watched it, I really enjoyed learning more about Drake, not just as a basketball player, but as a person as well. We get a lot more knowledge about his family, himself, what he likes to do outside of basketball as well, like the art aspect, that he likes to go to art museums and do his own things, do his own art as well. But also, too, Coach Brown's story was really, really interesting as well, and how he came to Northwood from Indiana and rose up through high school and college coaching and found his way to Chatham County. So definitely some great insight on Northwood's big names as far as Drake, Coach Brown, but also, a really, really great in-depth dive into kind of how their season went, especially at the end. We got a look into their locker room, and you could just tell how much, these games, that playoff run meant to those guys, especially with it being Drake's senior year. It just, you just really get the full scope of how much work they put into being successful at Northwood. I mean, we even get a clip of Coach Brown getting on Drake on something in film like that. They're it spread throughout the whole team. They were just all on one accord the whole year, and it was really cool to see that unfold with Pat Welter's story.
Yeah, the interesting thing too about it is, I think the impression I got from watching that is not only was Coach Brown good for Drake, but Drake was good for Coach Brown. It was a good learning experience for both of them. Um, and yeah, it was. I think it did a good job of covering. I think the other thing too at the beginning, the Northwood principal talks about the tone at Northwood. I've been at Northwood long enough to be able to see where Drake just enjoyed the high school experience, because I think in the documentary they're talking with his folks, and they said, yeah, there was discussions about him going somewhere else, but hey, his sister, Chatham County, his brother Deuce played at Northwood, and he's going to be playing down the road at Chapel Hill. So and as Coach Brown said, I think, and this goes for any kids, a lot of kids that play extracurricular activity, sports, kids that do participate in sports have a tendency to do well in school and also have a tendency to do in life. So I think Drake will do well. I had a chance to talk to Pat before it started. He still hasn't told me, but I'm going to need to find out why the Prince of Pittsburgh. I don't think anyone in Chatham County has called Drake the Prince of Pittsburgh. I actually saw Drake at Clyde Fest on Saturday and asked him how did anyone call him the Prince of Pittsburgh? He's like, no. So I will pick on Pat a little bit about that. But I thought overall that it was a nice job. I think the other thing, too, is having done this long enough, and I think Asheebo will learn this as well, a lot of people will remember the story. A lot of people 20 years from now, if they run into Pat somewhere, will say, hey, thanks for doing that story about Chat. It wasn't just a story about Drake. It was a story about Drake, Coach Brown, the team, and Chatham County. And I think Pat did a really nice job about bringing that all together. The other interesting shout out is to our occasional partner here on Chatham, Chatham NC Sports. Is there were a couple of audio bites of Coach John Berry making his commentary during the game. So I was aware that Pat was thinking about doing that, but I couldn't say anything until after the documentary came out. So nice job on that. All right. I've finished taking away time from Asheebo here. Asheebo, let's talk about what do we need to talk about? There's still a bunch of stuff to talk about. Oh, RPIs and conference standing and how that's going to look in the playoffs. Who do you see going to the playoffs right now? Who you don't see going? And then do you want to hit athlete of the week first, or do you want to hit the playoff picture first?
Let's hit athlete of the week first.
All right, go for it.
Yeah, athlete of the week. This week's athlete of the week for the week of April 8th is Sophia Viana from Seaford Girls Soccer Team. Me and Gene, we were just out watching her last night. She had her seventh multi-goal game this season just last night. But last week, she in Seaford's two big wins over Bartley Yancey and Jordan Matthews. She combined for 8 goals and 10 assists, and she scored 4 goals in each game. So at the time that we had this written, her 22 goals ranked 5th in the 2A East classification, and her 22 assists ranked 2nd in the entire NCHSAA. I have to check the standings. The stats after the 2 games they played this week. But yeah, she's right up there in the stat sheets as well. One of the best players in the state. And Seaford, for their team, the youth of their team made them mostly freshmen and sophomores, 10-1-1. I think they were 5th in the 2A East RPI as of last night, before the game last night. So, the season they're having is really, really remarkable. Just last year, they had lost to Woods Charter 4-0. Last night, they beat them 4-0 at home. And they just pretty much controlled most of the game after about the first half of the first half, where the game kind of opened up for them. Sidney Nezos had the long goal, and they just poured it on from there. So, congrats to Sophia, and kudos to the C4 girls soccer team as they finish out their rest of the regular season and get ready for their playoff run. But speaking of playoffs, RPI's conference standings. I want to get into all that for baseball and softball before we get off the stream today. And just taking a look at the Mid-Carolina and Central Tar Heel conference standings, starting with baseball in the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A conference. We have Seaford in the lead here with an 8-2 conference record, 13-4 overall this season. They've been, to me, the best, most consistent team in Chatham County this year. And then for the rest of the county teams, we have Northwood at fourth place with a 7-4 conference record, 7-8 overall. And then we have Chatham Central right behind, 6-4 conference record, 10-6 overall. Last night, I think we had those two teams playing actually, and Chatham Central, Northwood did beat Chatham Central last night 2-1, and they'll play again on the 19th at 7 p.m. So they're battling out for that spot in the conference standings. And then Jordan Matthews, if I can pull this back up, yep, Jordan Matthews is right behind Chatham Central in the sixth spot with a 4-5 conference record, 6-8 win and loss record overall this year. And then the Central Tar Heel 1A just got Chatham Charter. They're 11-1 in the conference, by far the best team in the Central Tar Heel 1A conference with 13-4 overall record. So, we're looks like we're going to have pretty much all of our baseball teams in the playoffs this year. Looking at the RPI, in the 1A, we got Chatham Charter at number 11, Chatham Central at number 23, and then in 2A we have Seaforth at number 12, Northwood at number 19, and Jordan Matthews at number 25. So big things to expect from some of our baseball teams this year. Chatham Charter and Seaforth, especially at the top of their conferences, and top 15 in the state RPI as they look for some pretty good seeding at the end of the season here. And we'll see more action between the county teams as they battle out in conference tournaments at the end of the year as well. And then softball. For softball in the Mid-Carolina 1A, 2A conference, we have Jordan Matthews in front after beating Chatham Central last night in the first game of their series this week. So Jordan Matthews 9-0 in the conference now, 11-2 overall. Chatham Central is right behind them, now 9-1 in the conference, 12-2 overall. Like I said, they'll play again tonight, and I will be there for that game. And then Northwood down in the fifth spot, 4-7 win and loss conference record, and 7-8 overall in the year. And then Seaforth is seventh in the conference, 3-7 conference record, and 4-10 overall on the season. Central Tar Heel 1A, once again, we just got Chatham Charter. They're 6-0 in the conference, 10-1 on the season, and leading their conference on another great year for Chatham Charter softball. Looking at softball RPIs on the 1A side, we got Chatham Central at number 10, Chatham Charter right behind at number 11. And then in 2A, we got Jordan Matthews all the way up at number 4, Northwood at number 32, and Seaforth at 37. Now, it's looking like, 3 teams for sure as of right now will be making it into the playoffs. Northwood, Seaforth, they still have time to fight for a spot for a lower seed. Definitely a pretty big next 2 or 3 weeks for them as they finish the regular season and try to win a couple games in the conference tournaments and better their case in the RPI standings. So just a quick outlook, quick update on where teams are for baseball and softball as far as a playoff picture. Gene, anything you like to say about, kind of what's going on in baseball and softball here in the county?
No, I think you rounded it up. I think folks are getting excited about the teams that are going to make it to the playoffs. I think when it comes to baseball, Chatham County Schools, there's always someone who does well enough to go really pretty far in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens this year. I think you've done a nice roundup as to what's going on. As always, we appreciate the folks who watch us live and also then the folks who watch us later on. Right now, we hit up to about 21 folks watching the live stream right here on a Wednesday afternoon, and usually we get over 500, 600 folks watching the live stream. We will be back next Wednesday. Asheebo said you're going to be where tonight?
Yeah, tonight I'll be at Chatham Central for the Jordan Matthews and Chatham Central softball game, second game of the series. And then on Saturday, I plan to be at Seaforth. I think it's a midday game. I want to say it's at 2:30. I'm not all the way sure, but middle of the day against Northmore. That's a big conference game for them. So that's where I'll be at for the next couple of days.
Okay. I can't do anything tonight. However, tomorrow I do plan to be over in Northwood for Dalton's meet and greet at 6 o'clock. We'll have video out on that. I'll take some pictures for the paper, and then don't know. Saturday's kind of looking like I can't do anything in the county, uh, but hey, that's what's going on right now. Follow Asheebo. Let me see if I can find it because I know we want to get the fact that he's out there on Twitter. There we go. Hold on, it's coming up. There is Asheebo R38. I was talking to Josh Harris earlier today. Josh had mentioned that, hey, he appreciates the work Asheebo has been doing because he still stays in contact with the AD over at JM. And the nice thing about Asheebo is he's out there in the community meeting with coaches, teams. And if you watch him on Twitter, he always kicks in after those games. He'll usually have a quick 1 or 2 minute video interview with either the coach or some of the players. So definitely an added component that we didn't have last year before Asheebo came on board. And he's getting close to his 1 year anniversary. So if you see him out there, give him a shout out, or if you don't want to shout at him, give him a thumbs up. But go ahead and follow him on Twitter. Again, I'm going to post that just one more time. It's really easy. Asheebo also likes NBA basketball, so he'll toss the information about that every once in a while as well. So, folks, we will see you next Wednesday at noontime. We'll have some information as to Asheebo, as to what stories he's got. Again, player of the week, rankings, power rankings for baseball and softball, and we'll get a better picture of what's going to be happening at the playoffs as well. So, folks, as always, thanks for watching. Let your family and friends know about us. Share that information, and we'll see you next Wednesday.